Buddha nature doesn't mean that we all have little Buddha sitting inside us. My little Buddha, it looks brighter than your little Buddha. It doesn't mean that. That would just be another ego. It's not that. But it means the fundamental level of our pure consciousness behind the coming and going of our surface conceptual thinking mind, the dualistic mind. I, other, subject, object. Beyond that is a non-dualistic level of awareness, which is our true nature, and which can be recognized by anyone at any time. It's not even the result of years and years of practice. It can come in a second. Usually it goes again. Some people it stays if they've practiced very hard in past lives. But it's always there. So therefore it is sometimes also compared to like space or the sky. This I like it best because it's clearer if we think of it as space rather than a thing. Everything is space. Not only outside the vast sky, the vast universe is space, but in here it's space. If we said what was here in this room, you'd say, well, there were chairs, there was a platform, there was tables and flowers and people. But firstly, none of this could exist if there were not space. And secondly, all those chairs and tables and flowers and people are also space. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is very fascinated by quantum physics because they are coming to the same conclusions which Buddhist philosophy came to 2,500 years ago. And indeed, there's a dialogue where he's talking with one very renowned quantum physicist, and the quantum physicist is saying, they were discussing about the ultimate nature of all phenomena. And the scientist said, well, to his own, I don't know how you could have realized this. You have known all this without machines. And his owner said, well, I don't know how you could have realized this without meditating. So the point is that the understanding that ultimately everything is non-conceptual, ungraspable, like space. And likewise the mind. The mind also is ungraspable. You can't see it. The ultimate nature of the mind, you can't see it. You can't grasp it. There's no way you can say this is me and mine. But it is like space. It's nothing could exist if there were not space. Our thoughts and feelings could not exist if there were not the space in the mind, which is our pure consciousness. Unborn, undying. And also in meditation, to recognize, if we look at the mind and the thoughts, but to look at the space from which those thoughts arise and dissolve, it's all the nature of the mind. Like clouds in the sky. We see the clouds, we see the rainbows, we see the lightning, black clouds, white clouds, but they only exist because of the sky. So if we look at the clouds, they can part and we can see behind all that, where did the clouds come from, where do they go to? It's all from this vast open spaciousness. So when we look at the mind, it's not the thoughts which are so important, it's the fact that these thoughts come from the space, go back into the space. And what is observing? So this ultimate nature of the mind, which is our true nature, is also described as like waking up. When we are asleep, then when we believe our dreams while we are sleeping, right? We go to sleep, and if it's a frightening dream, then our hearts pound. Or if it's a funny dream, then the people even laugh in their dreams, or they cry in it. I mean, we while we're dreaming, unless we're doing dream yoga, we really believe in our dreams. And then we wake up, and we oh, that was just a dream. But we're still asleep. So the Buddha, the word Buddha, means to awake. In Tibetan it's the same, Sangye. Sang means to awake. So we are all still dreaming. This is all our projection. We need to wake up. So it's always this sense that, of course, if we are in a state of primal awareness, it doesn't mean that everything goes poof and disappears. But we see things how they really are, not through the projection which we normally put onto everything and everybody through our conceptual thinking mind. We see things nakedly, how they are. Then the mind inwardly is liberated. It's free. As I said, these nuns and all the accounts is a sense of laying down the burden of our conceptual thinking and our conceptual identification with everything which we are not, and not recognizing who we really are, which is fantastic what we are. Why, when the realized beings, the more wisdom we get, the more clarity of understanding which arises, the more compassion. Why? Because for those who have the eyes of wisdom, the eyes that see things how they really are, then they look at us all. And they see us and they think, oh, poor things, here they are. Potentially they're Buddhas. But because they don't see, they suffer so much and cause so much suffering to others. And we're all trapped in the prison of our wrong views, that we don't see things clearly. All of us are in prison. It doesn't matter whether we're in the penthouse suite or down in the dungeons. It's all a prison. And maybe this time up there, next time down there. We don't know. It's not something which we have any control over. Today I'm feeling fantastic, I'm wonderful, I'm great. Tomorrow I discover I've got cancer. We don't know. Or that someone we love leaves us for whatever reason. Or the stock market crashes and I'm left with nothing. We don't know. But we suffer with our clinging, our grasping, our attachment, our upset, our anger, our worries, our anxieties, our jealousies, our hopes, our fears, circling round and round and round and round, and from a Buddhist perspective, endless lifetimes. Up, down, this way, that way, trapped in this vast prison house of samsara. This is why those with wisdom eyes look at us with compassion. because the key is already there, but we don't see it. It's within us, each one. Meditation isn't just about getting peaceful and being calm and happy. It's nothing to do with that. Might make you feel worse as things come up. But it's for getting free, for clearly seeing who we really are. And letting go at deeper and deeper levels until we realize our true nature. Our true nature has no problems. Hey, guess what? We're fundamentally, we're perfectly okay. There's no problem at all. Each one of us. There's no high or low. Gender is irrelevant. Buddha nature is not male or female. Race is irrelevant. Nationality is irrelevant. Status is irrelevant. All of that. Space is just space. Space might sound very blank. Space, for its empty, all-pervading quality, the fact we can't grasp it, we can't see it, we can't taste it, we can't touch it. This is why mind is like space. Nature, the mind is like space because you can't grasp it. You can't divide it. I mean, for example, if you all went out, then you come back in again. Excuse me, that's my seat. Right? I mean, really, sometimes people come to fisticuffs over it. There's some Dharma talk with the Dalai Lama, and it gets quite aggressive. Huh? Especially those Tibetan grandmothers with the elbows. But we cannot say, excuse me, you can't breathe my air. This is my air. How dare you breathe in my air? Even whoever. Right now in this hall, we're breathing in each other's air. We're breathing out air. We're sharing. We can't say, right, this is my air. I'm not going to share it with you. Right? We're all breathing in, breathing out, interconnecting with each other. At this very fundamental level, which we cannot see. We cannot. So this is why the nature of the mind is compared to space. Because we don't own it. We can't see it, we can't grasp it, but nothing would exist if it wasn't there. Everything is made of space, and everything exists because of space. So this is a very good example for the nature of the mind. We couldn't think, we couldn't feel, we couldn't do anything if we didn't have that fundamental nature. But not just this open, all-pervading emptiness of space, the nature of the mind. It is also, that in Tibetan is called tongpa, empty. But it is also selwa. So in Tibetan it's very easy, tongsel. Selwa is a word, one of those words. It means clarity, clearness. A mirror is selwa. A glass, if you look through it, this is selwa. Right? You can see through it, transparent. So it means clear, clarity, luminous, bright, and cognizant, knowing. So All of that is summed up in one word in Tibetan, selwa. In English, very difficult. I sometimes ask various translators, how do you translate selwa? And different ones come up with different. Mingyur Rinpoche uses clarity. Some use luminosity. Herado said lucidity. Lucidity is good. You're lucid. It has a cognizant aspect to it. It also means clear and it also means bright. Lucid is quite a good word. But it's this quality of the mind, our essential, pure, unborn awareness is not just ungraspable and all-pervading. It is also ultimate knowing, awareness, clarity, luminous. And it pervades all our thinking, but we don't recognize it. So when we're thinking, we're caught up in the clouds of conceptual thinking. We don't see the sky from which those clouds are coming. That essential awareness. So again, to become aware of awareness. So this quality of this ultimate, spacious, non-conceptual awareness, which is our fundamental nature, this is completely healthy. It is completely wholesome because it's non-dualistic. In that level of being, there's no I and other. But it doesn't, as I say, mean that we become a cosmic blob. You know, I mean, if you meet great realized masters, they're more alive than us. They're more vivid. They're more clarity. They're more heart, more acceptance, more love. And this sense of just being completely present and non-judgmental. So the point is that this is our true nature. This is who we really are. Yes, we are sick. And there is a reason for our sickness. So we suffer. But it is not terminal. There's a cure. Because actually we are healthy. Our true nature is extremely well. All we have to do is rediscover who we have been all the time. It's just that we don't recognize. You couldn't hear me, you couldn't see me if you weren't conscious. We couldn't do anything if we're not conscious. So it's not that we have to get something from somewhere else. It's not that we have to wait for someone to give us something that we don't have. All we have to do is recognize what is already there. And actually recognizing it, the main problem is if we want to recognize it, we won't. And so far, I mean, this is always the problem in meditation. If you want something, I'm going to get it, then, we'll never get it because that's just the ego playing games. The ego wants to be enlightened. Then I can sit on a nice big throne and wear a hat. But of course the ego can never be enlightened. The ego has to, all genuine, really this is not just Buddhism, all genuine spiritual traditions, Christian, Judaic, Islam, Hinduism, shaman also, they talk about pure awareness. All of them, on the mystical, spiritual side of them, not the dogma side, but the mystical side of them, if you read the mystics of any of these genuine spiritual traditions, they're all saying the same thing, that we are blocked from our innate divinity, whatever you want to call it, by our small self. They all agreed. I mean, a while back we were in Guatemala at this interspiritual conference, and they had very top-ranking people, Christian bishops and very high-ranking Catholic bishops and imams, rabbis, Hindu swamis, shamans. And the discussion was, well, what is it all about, basically, and what do we have in common? And the point is that on the one level, you know, be good, be kind, be honest. We're all agreed. And then comes the dogma in the middle, where we all diverge a bit. And then ultimately, we're back together again. That the genuine nature is inexpressible, beyond words, unthinkable. Anything we say about it, it's not that. Because the conceptual mind cannot grasp that which is beyond concepts. But it is innate within us. So from a theistic point of view, they would say God is within. The kingdom of heaven is within. From Hindus, they will say we are the immortal Atman. Buddhists will say we are the deathless Buddha nature. Doesn't matter what words we use. St. Paul said, it is not I that move, but Christ that moves in me. All the great Christian mystics have recognized that God is not something out there in the sky. God is within. So it's not something which has been invented. It's not something which is revealed just in one spiritual tradition. The greatness of the Buddha was that he gave us a path. He didn't just say, right, this is what it looks like from the top of the mountain. He gave us the tools to climb that mountain. I mean, if we consider from the point of view of various, as we're talking about mountains, if you go up the north face and somebody else goes up the south face and somebody goes up the east face or the west face, then the route is going to look very different. The view is going to look very different. And most people don't even get to the top. So then when they come back down again, they're going to describe what they encountered on the path and the view they got from that. And it's all going to look different because they're coming from different points on the mountain. If they get to the top, where they have a 360-degree view, then that's the 360-degree view, but they'll come back down the same way again. And so again, they will think that's their way, it's the way up. And from their point of view, it's valid. But it doesn't mean that's the only way to go up the mountain. Some ways are more difficult, some are easier. But the mountain doesn't belong to anybody. The top of the mountain is our true nature. we see this vast open spaciousness. It doesn't belong to anybody. You can't plant your flag on it. Say, now I've conquered that. I'm going to give it a name and it's mine. It doesn't belong to anybody. And so different traditions have given it different names. And sometimes, you can go through, reach there through meditation, through selfless activities, through devotion. Many, many ways. Back to our fundamental nature, which is always there, just waiting for us to come back home. We're trying to get back home to our true nature again. However long it takes us, we will eventually get back home. I was just talking about home. Last night, Monica and I were watching The Wizard of Oz, which I last saw as a small child. And it's very sweet. And of course, it has its own spiritual message, because, they meet with the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion. And each one is looking for those qualities which they already embody. When anybody has, the Scarecrow is looking for a brain because his head is full of straw and he feels so stupid. But he's always the one that comes up with the good ideas. And the Tin Man feels hollow inside, he has no heart, but he's always the most emotional. And the Cowardly Lion is always the one that rushes forward to protect until he remembers he's supposed to be cowardly. And so each one of them actually has already those very qualities which they consider that they lack. And Dorothy, her only wish is in all this enchanted land to go home. And to go back to where she really belongs. And so in a way it's a very spiritual movie. It has some very, I think for children especially it's very good, to give them this idea of, inner qualities that we already embody and don't recognize. We recognize in others, we don't recognize already in ourselves. But all the qualities needed for the path, we already have them. And so it's not going on an outer journey, it's going back to the true source of our being. It's coming back home again, where ultimately, of course, we have never left. But we just have never recognized where we already are. So that brings us up to lunchtime, and so please be back at 2:00, and we will then deal with how to climb the mountain. Okay?